Okay. Well, I can give a little bit of introduction. I saw lots of names I recognize on there, so good morning, and thank you, Kerry, for allowing me to tell you all about this new service that's now available to Massachusetts families. Many of you, I've probably met you over the years. My name is Randi Sargent. I have a son, Graham, who is 24. And he has cerebral palsy and intellectual disability, and he is nonverbal. So we have used lots of pictures throughout his whole lifetime to help him communicate, from low-tech choice boards, which he loves, and to various high-tech devices, which we've now stepped down from and going to a more moderate tech device. And I've learned about talking mats because my son was actually born in England, so I stay in touch with a lot of English services and stuff that he received when he was younger. And this is, talking mats is a modality that comes out of Scotland, and I'll take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about it. But over the summer, during my coronacation, I worked on some professional development, and I took the course that Talking Mats offers to become a certified practitioner. So I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about it and get some feedback, see what you think. And at the end, I am looking for volunteers to sign up to do this at no cost for the next several months. So we'll get started. Let's see, hopefully this will work, Kerry. It didn't switch slides, did it? There we go. I got to use different. I have two screens up, so it's hard. So talking mats is a deceptively simple modality. It's a simple picture-based communication framework to help individuals express themselves. So it's designed to work with people who have speech difficulties. So they don't have to be nonverbal. It can be anyone who has difficulty expressing feelings. And it's a research-based modality. It comes out of the University of Stirling in Scotland, where it was created and researched by teams of speech and language therapists in the UK, but it's used all over the world, primarily UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, English-speaking countries for the most part. And it's really excels at making information and communication more accessible because it's interactive and the person is able to respond to questions in a non-threatening way. It also really works well for individuals, perhaps like my son, who are not really abstract thinkers, so it's hard to get them to talk about their feelings and what they might like to do in the future. And what this does is it gives pictures, representations, and they can sort out, sort of, literally, how they feel about things. It does require some training, as I mentioned, and it comes from the UK. There are different levels of training. I took the practitioner training, but you can do a train the trainer as well. A tool to help people on their journey of decision making. So how does talking mats work? It's an interactive modality that individuals take charge of, and they express themselves using pictures and concepts. It can be low tech or high tech. It can be literally a mat with picture symbols on it, or they also have an app and a digital version. It can be used to solve problems and help individuals make decisions. One thing I know that was always tough for my son is, he's a master at yes/no questions, but what if it's not yes/no? What if it's in that gray area? And it's really hard to tease out what he doesn't like about something or does like it. And so talking mats is a tool that sort of teases out that gray area. So on the right-hand side shows the basic, schematic of how it works. There's a topic. That's where the creativity comes from that you choose to solve. You come up with the options, and they're represented by symbols or pictures. And there's a scale at the top. And it's starting from the left. So for example, this is sort of the most basic scale. Thumbs up, good, happy. On the other side, it's no, unhappy, bad. And then I don't know, somewhere in the middle. And, usually depending on the level of the user, there can be words, and that scale can be more generic or more specific depending on what the issue is you're trying to solve. But you ask the user a series of open-ended questions. So it's not a yes-no answer. They need to say, I am happy about it, I am not happy about it, I'm not so sure, I'm somewhere in the middle. There's no right or wrong answers. And it's a great way to record how that individual, hold on here, Kerry, approve, how the individual feels about at that specific time. So I've done this with families, of course, as you imagine, and all the mothers have said, well, that's not how he feels. I know he really likes to go shopping or whatever. So, but at that time, the individual said, I don't want to go shopping anymore, or it's not my favorite thing. So, we screenshot the image, and it's a tool that you can reflect back on and say, well, at the beginning of Coronication, you said you didn't want to do this. Do you still want to do this now? So it's a way to look back in time. So Talking Mats is delivered on one-to-one interviews. There's an interviewer, who in this case would probably be me, and a thinker. And the thinker, you do it in a quiet setting where the person can concentrate. A whole session only takes about 15 minutes, I guess, to do with the individual if they're engaged. You can do it in person. The picture at the top, that's the founder, actually, Dr. Joan Murphy. And an adult with, I'll show that short video if we can get that to work. That's the low-tech version, so it's done with a mat and pictures. But they also offer a remote version, which is what got me interested in this, especially during Corona, the pandemic. I don't have access to, meet with people, but it can be done either through a computer and Zoom, or you can do it on an app. And that is actually, they're updating their app, so that'll be really good when that comes in January. Some of the advantage of the digital version, obviously, I'm not sitting one-to-one. It would have been hard to get access to people's houses or to group homes or to school. You can take pictures of the family pet or the family house, depending, you can personalize it with photographs because of the camera. And then you can easily screenshot it. And what I find this particularly useful, because you screenshot the map the person created, and I put it in a little report. So it's just a 2-page report on how the session went, who was there, what we talked about, the highlights, and what might be the next step. So let's see if I can get this going, Kerry.
So just to remind you to share your computer audio.
Okay, so how do I do that again?
The dots on the tabs.
Okay.
And click on the dots.
Yeah.
And that says share computer audio?
Yes.
That's what you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She's got a great accent too.
Right, so what I'm going to do this time, Ian, is we're going to use something called Talking Mats to help you think about the goals you want to work with the rehab team. So what I'm going to put along the top, first of all, I've got lots of symbols here. On this side, I'm going to put, this would be for things that you're managing, that you're coping with and you're managing well. This would be things you're maybe not sure about. And this is the things that you're having difficulty with, that you maybe want help with. Okay? So I've got a few symbols here. These are kind of the general, these are sort of general topics, and they're in no particular order. Okay? So, first of all, what do you feel about your spare time, doing things in your spare time? Okay, so is that something you're having difficulty with? You're needing more things to do? Okay. What about domestic things like cooking, shopping, housework? You're managing that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you do a lot of housework?
No.
Okay. This is about work and education. What do you feel about work or further education, going to college?
Yeah.
Are you managing that okay? You're kind of not sure.
So you get the idea there. Let's try this one. This is a school-age child using the app. So I'll just show you like a minute.
First of all, by asking you about how you're feeling about school.
I find school quite good. I've got a lot of help. School in general just got quite easier as the year goes on. I've got my exams this year and I feel quite confident with them.
Okay, so where would you put that?
I'll put it in the good bit.
Yeah, so you're feeling happy about that. Okay. James, how do you feel about your review meetings?
I'm a wee bit in the middle of them.
Okay.
They're not the greatest things
I know.
that I like.
Okay. Where would you put it, do you
In
think?
the middle.
So, how do you feel at your review meetings? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
A bit nervous as well because I've got a lot of teachers saying that I do good work, I just
I think reviews are exams there. So those are two examples. They work very similarly, but one definitely has to be done in person, whereas the other one is more conducive to doing remote work. All right, Kerry, it doesn't switch. Should I stop share?
Okay. Okay, this one's asking you about how you...
I'm going to try to. No, I can't advance your slides either.
Okay, let me
Are you
see
thinking
if I
about-
can
Yeah.
stop share.
What?
There we go.
for
Yeah.
the person that you...
There we go.
Okay.
So I had to stop sharing. So who is Talking Maths designed for? Who's using this? One of the beauties of this is it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is or cause of the disability. It can be used with children, adults, adolescents, people with physical disabilities. They do need to have some, well, ideally, you do want them to be able to move those symbols themselves, although they can get some assistance with that. It's used with people with intellectual disabilities within limits. I'll talk about that. People with speech conditions, stroke, aphasia, Parkinson's disease, people with dementia who can't express themselves, may not have a speech challenge, but can't express themselves well. And a new area, I guess, is people who are at risk from harm. So there's a lot more going on with people with mental health issues, using this for that, or in, people showing more dicey behaviors, I guess, and keeping them safe. What abilities are needed to use Talking Maths? So as I said, you saw it does require some physical ability to move the mat, although you can prompt and cue to do that. The goal is to have them interact with it themselves and do it as independently as possible. You have to be able to obviously have some visual ability, some cognitive ability to be able to understand the topics that are being talked about, and a reliable confirmation method, like how reliable is this person's answers? That would be an essential thing to have. To make it most successful, you start out doing something interesting and motivating. Most people who do this find it fun. It's fun to do because it's short, it's focused. You can do several mats at a time. You plan all this in advance, what the topic is you're going to discuss, and we come up with the topics and the questions. And so you want to start out with something that's interesting and motivation. I've learned from experience, you do kind of need to do it in a quiet environment. So the person is focused on this, even if it's just 15 minutes. Things like being sick, tired, hungry, not ideal. You want the person to be able to respond. And then, we've seen this before. I've seen this before, even myself. sometimes people want to please others. So if mom and dad are in the room, and they can be there, mom and dad are asked to step back, take that pause and not prompt their child, and let them answer themselves. Oftentimes parents say, he loves to shop, or he loves to do that. Why did he say that? He's just trying to please you. Well, that's what he said at the time. So we're going to record that and take it as his word. You can always do sub-mats and continue on to explore a topic, but at the time, that's how he expressed he felt. So on the right-hand side here is a little diagram that shows what the research has shown on who does best using this kind of modality. So individuals that don't have intentional movement and understand to have a reliable confirmation method are not ideal candidates. Move on to step 2, and again, this is kind of a developmental model. So individuals who understand here and now, concrete ideas, and understand symbols and pictures can absolutely do this successfully. And my son is in that sphere, probably bordering on the third one, which is people who interact more abstractly with the outside world. They understand things that are out of context, abstract ideas, have some reasoning ability, they can make judgment, and they can plan for the future. So those individuals might be adults, people with just speech impairments, but not an intellectual disability. So folks in that 2 and 3 developmental circles can absolutely use talking mats to successfully indicate their choices. So where can it be used? I guess I don't mean physically where, but in what realms of their life is it helpful? Well, it certainly helps with health services, especially for kids with complex health needs, talking about their concerns as they enter adult services, social services, working with your DDS agency or autism support organizations. It can be used in an educational environment to prepare for an IEP meeting, support agencies, residential providers. I saw an example, someone videoed an individual expressing how well he liked or how happy he was with his different care providers, which I thought was kind of interesting. They did it in a way too that wasn't, you can use this, and depending on the question you ask, where it's not threatening, so it was kind of interesting. And of course, personal advocacy. What does the individual want to do with his life? Again, here's another, and we've talked about that, particularly in the transition group for older kids. How do you get your child to indicate what they want for their services, or if they want to work out in the volunteer, out in the community? It can be hard to ask those questions when the individual doesn't have much experience with that outside world. So talking mats is a great way to get to know someone and developing a relationship with them. It's really well used for planning activities at home, school, in the community, especially during times of COVID. There's lots of symbols out there and pictures to say, well, what do you like to do? What would you like to do out in the community? And the person sorts it into, I'm interested in this, I'm not interested in this. It's a great way to get someone involved in their goal setting and service planning for ISPs and IEPs. It allows someone to become more directly involved in their care planning and self-direction. You can use it to participate in assessments. That's obviously would have a specific set of symbols attached to it, but it's a good way to do that. Sharing feelings about school, care, or residential settings. People aren't often asked that. Sometimes it's obvious based on their behavior, but this is a good way to summarize and then be able to share with others, really. That's kind of key on what they've said, how they feel about school, how they feel about their care setting, the residential setting, or their doctors. And you can take a picture of that and show a progression over time. It's also a good way to explore sensitivity issues and safety. They have a whole module at Talking Maths, which I haven't taken yet, but about personal safety. So that's obviously an issue that people have difficulty talking about. So if you were interested in Talking Maths, so this is all a work in progress. I just started doing this over the summer, but I'm hoping to work with families by partnering with schools and for IEPs and transition planning with person-centered planning facilitators. So it might be a pre-step to a person-centered planning. I could see that happening so well, right, with the individual doing this in advance of their conversations for ISP meetings or IEP meetings, and coming in and showing others their mat on how they felt about what they want to do with their life. Family support organizations can use it. So anyone, some of the family support organizations that Kerry works with who are doing the transition planning, how important is work to their life? This could be a tool to use that. Autism support organizations, of course, and direct consultation with families and self-advocates themselves. So I put this out there now. I asked Kerry about this. I am seeking volunteers who might like to do this with their child or someone they care for. I'm offering this free service to individuals to get practice and find those ideal topics to talk about through December. Or you could request it from your family support meeting for your next ISP meeting. You request it from support brokers or other person-centered planning providers, or you can reach out to me directly, and there's my contact information. So does anyone have any questions about this or ideas? Did anything strike you as something, you know, how you might engage your loved one or a client?
Feel free to unmute yourself to ask a question. So I had actually a question. I'm thinking about someone, Randy, that he's legally blind, but he does have a difficult time communicating preferences. He's echolalic, and so I'm wondering, you know, how we could adapt this a little bit for him, because I think this would be really, really helpful. And you know, maybe it would be enlarging a symbol, or you know,
so
that sort of thing. But yeah, have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could make the symbols, particularly in the digital version, you know, you could make them as big. Right. Actually, the same in the print version, you just make them bigger. You could probably print the symbols out in black and white too, if that helps some individuals with vision impairments. It does. Being able to, the physical version, you'd be able to hold it up really close, you know, if he has some vision. I don't know, I can talk to some friends in that community and figure that out, I guess.
Yeah, because I think this would be really helpful for him, just because, you know, he does, I know he has strong opinions, but he's not always able to express them. So we're, you know, he's newly retired, so we're trying to help him figure out what a good day looks like while he's now a newly retired gentleman. So
yes,
yeah.
You know, the nice thing about this is you can chunk it into fairly small topics. So really keeping someone's attention for 15 minutes is usually pretty doable. And if they're really into it, you break it down. You can do submats, you know, so it's like 15 minutes at a time, and you do 2 of them. So that's part of this as well. People don't like to sit down and, you know, talk about themselves or whatever. I have never had the opportunity to do that for a long period of time. I know if my son walked into a person-centered planning meeting, he would tune out, you know, like large groups of people, I don't do that. But one-on-one, I think we're holding his interest enough, you know, so.
Are there so many sessions to this, or do you really?
Well, it depends. I mean, I guess it depends. So in the conversation about what you're trying to discuss, we'd have to break it down into, what are the questions we can ask. You can probably do it in 3 mats, maybe 2 or 3 mats. I think it would be 10. That's where the creativity part, I think, comes in at the beginning. What is it that we want to find out? What are the options for this individual, right? Church may not be something he's interested in, but another person, it might be very interesting, very engaging for them. So it depends a lot. So there's some pre-work that goes into setting it up so that the mat is relevant for that person. The modality is used a lot with speech therapists, even not so much in the US. I do know that they're probably not using it for person-centered planning or any kind of planning like that, but they use it as a, speech modality, speech therapy tool, But in our community, I could see really using this to help people self-advocate for themselves and what they want when they can't really express it well to others. So that's my goal with this. I'm obviously not a speech pathologist. So I don't know. I just love this. I think it's so simple and it can be used. It's so flexible that it can be used for almost anything. So you can see from some of the examples here what it's used for. It's used by obviously speech and language pathologists, but social workers, all kinds of carer types. So
Great.
If anyone wants more information, feel free to reach out to Kerry or to me. Again, if you're interested in doing this with your child or a client, please contact me before December. And I would be happy to do some practice sessions with you. So
that's awesome.
That's it for me.
All right. Okay. So another check-in. Anybody have a question? They can unmute themselves.
I have a question.
I want to thank you, Randy. For,
we have a question. Somebody has a question.
Oh, we do have a question.
Randy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I think this sounds great. It sounds like a really wonderful opportunity for some of our folks. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how you tease things out for someone who may have difficulty really figuring out what it is that they want or what it is that they like. Someone who was more in that, like, maybe number 2 circle that you had.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, input from the family will be key. You can put a picture of anything in there. So some of the more obvious ones, talking with friends, talking with, with family, going out grocery shopping, going to the movies, there's symbols and pictures for all of those things. So, we'd have to brainstorm those in advance. And then, the interesting thing is watching them say, well, do I like that or do I not like that? So I think that physical aspect of actually placing or moving that picture is really empowering to them, an individual, rather than just shaking his head no or, signing or whatever. But clearly we work with caregivers and parents up front to narrow down those options because right, you don't want to distract them with things that they're not at all interested in or available. You could put skydiving, but if that's not an option, that's going to be fairly frustrating. So yeah, it takes a little bit of pre-planning to find the options. And sometimes they may say something crazy, like, oh no, I hate shopping, and they love shopping, but it really doesn't matter. You can repeat this over time and see how it progressed. So I did this actually with a friend who had she had some surgery and had some neurological issues after that. And it was hard becoming an adult who had some physical limitations. So we did a mat with her about how well she was adapting to her physical environment. And what was particularly enlightening, right? But so we knew what those things were: shopping, doing housework. We brainstormed those. But her putting it down on that mat, she was able to take that visual to her PT and say, look, these are the things I'm really having trouble with. And then we could do it again a month later and see how the PT had helped her. So that's, but we knew what those choices were. Yeah, you want to brainstorm in advance the things that are options to the individual, and use those. So did that answer your question, sort of?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. How about anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Randy, for this really informative presentation. I'm excited to see how you make progress in the next few months, and would love you to maybe come back and give us some more info after December, in terms of how it's going and where you're finding it useful and that sort of thing.
So please feel free to refer any friends, anyone that you do. I'm going to be doing them remotely, actually, at this point. Although I guess group homes are sort of opening up at this point, but schools probably not. So I would be doing it digital version via Zoom or sharing the app. So it's not that intrusive to the family, and I hope someone will reach out to me.
Okay, great.
Thanks. Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Randy, and thanks all for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, I have some folks who are going to talk to us about pre-ETS programs, or pre-employment transition services. The West Director from Mass Rehab Commissioner, and then a provider agency out in Western Mass is going to be talking about how they're providing pre-ETS services to students during these COVID remote times. So hope you can join us. So thanks again, and everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You want to stop sharing your screen? There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Carrie.
All right. Thanks. That was great.
See you next time. Bye.